Welcome to Claris Talk. I was talking to my good friend Jesse the other day, and we were talking about different methods to learn data modeling and how relationships work in FileMaker. And he suggested a really good thing that we all really know in life, because we've all been students, is what it would look like for a school. So let's kind of work through some of these examples. We'll start small, and we're going to start in the middle. I'm going to make some mistakes on purpose, and then we'll talk about why there's other ways to do that data modeling. Okay, so we have this template table, and we're going to start with this one kind of as an example to use for all the other ones. We'll just start with an ID. We're going to use serial numbers, not UUIDs. And I'll copy this into the clipboard, and let's start just with student, right? So I'll paste it. I'll call it student. Any given table that you have has to have some attributes. So for the moment, each one will have a primary key, and a student attribute would be something like the student name, and then maybe something else like grade. So if we have that, we'll take a look at our screen, make a fake record for this one. So we're going to make a student named Lucy, who's in 11th grade. And we'll make another one who's named Ranger, who's in 10th grade. So now we have these two student records, and what we want to do is we want to track which classes they have. So one of the things that a lot of people would think would be, oh, okay, well, let's just go back into our table and we'll make a field called class. And then we'll add that one to our layout. And we'll start listing the classes, right? So Lucy is taking music appreciation, music 101, Baroque era, and she's also, I'll make another record for her. She's maybe also taking, Lucy, grade 11, is also taking art history. Keep everything in the arts. Okay, so now we have, we see kind of our first issue, which is we have some duplication already, right? So Ranger, let's say Ranger is taking Math 101. So if we wanted to have multiple classes for Lucy, we already have a duplicate record for her because we have more than one. So enter our first data model situation. So what we really would need then is another table called class. And then we'd have to have some sort of a way to connect these two. So first let's go to our class table, and we're going to make a class for Music 101 Baroque era. Music 101 Baroque era. And I'll go to the class table and I'll name this one class name. And then maybe like who the teacher is. So Music 101 Baroque era is going to be taught by Matt. I would love to teach that class. And then another class would be Math 101. And maybe that would be taught by Mr. Ebby. Okay, so now we have those two classes. And then what we need then is a way to link those to the student. So let me open up my class table and put it over here to the side, and we can kind of see how these manual links would work. So now in our student table, we're no longer going to have this thing called class because it no longer really makes sense. So I'll delete that. And instead what we're going to have is we're going to have a relationship from student to class. Let's talk about how that would look. So first of all, I kind of want to think about it from the perspective of the class, like which students are in this class. And so that would be the class would have an ID and the student would have an ID. So in here, if I'd say, oh, okay, well, in the class Music 101, I want to have a key for the student, ID 1, Lucy. And then I also want to have another record where in this class, Music 101 for student 2. So I'll make another record in here for student 2. I'll have to originally call it Music 101. And then we can see kind of our problem here is we've got duplication again, right? So we have 2 records in the class table, and that's exactly kind of what we don't want. But at least what we do have is if I go to the class, or if I go to the student and I make a relationship here from student to class, we have to figure out how to relate it. So let's talk a little bit about that. There's 2 types of relationships that pretty much will never work. One of them is primary key to primary key. That pretty much doesn't ever get done. And another one is foreign key to foreign key. Also really rare. So that leaves 2 choices: primary key to foreign key, or the other way around, foreign key to primary key. So there's really only 4 logical choices basically between these. So it's almost kind of a 50-50 chance, right? If you really don't know what you're doing, you can just try one, see if it works, and then go the other way. Let's just try this one and do an experiment. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to make a portal. This is the way you can really view how relationships work in FileMaker. And I'm going to seed data from class to student, where I'm going to list the student's name. And I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. Let's see, that's the class table. I'm going to go to the student table and make a portal here where I show records. All right, so in both of these cases, what I'm hoping to see is the relationship that I want that lists which students are in which class. Okay, so if I go here to my class table, I actually don't see either of these things working correctly, right? So if I look at the class, I look at the class Musical 101, I don't see any of the students in the class. Also, I go over here to the student and I look for the student and I don't see anything here. So let's just assume my relationship is wrong. Let's change it to the other way, that way, and see if it fixes things. And look at that. So by changing the relationship, now I can see that the class Music 101 has 1 student, Lucy. And then over here, if I go to the student, I can see Lucy is in the class and also Ranger is in the class. But I can still see that there may be some problems here with redundancy, right? When I look at my class, I still have 2 records, right? Here's Lucy in Music 101 and here's Ranger in Music 101. I don't want to have 2 records for the class. I just want to have 1. So now we have another concept that we need to add, which is called enrollment. So let's make another table and we're going to call this one enrollment. And this is going to be a join table. It's going to go in between student and class, and the purpose of it is to reduce redundancy. So the enrollment table is interesting because it's a join table is kind of a special case. And it really goes between 2 tables, and you get 2 one-to-many relationships, and the set of them combines what's called a many-to-many relationship. Many students, many classes, and the record in the table in the middle gets the join. Okay, so in our join table, really I'm just going to track 2 things. I'm going to track the ID of the teacher, the class, and the ID of the student. I'll rename those just for consistency. I don't really need these 2 at the moment. So just to simplify things, my enrollment table is very, very simple. It just has 2 keys. This one will not have a primary key in it. It just has 2 foreign keys essentially. So then how would my relationship graph work? Okay, so in a join table, this makes it kind of simpler based on the way that I named it. A student can be enrolled in the enrollment, and a class can have multiple students. So this is how it would look. And then this is basically the the child table in both these relationships, right? A student can have multiple enrollments and a class can have multiple students. So it kind of goes in between. I'm also going to make one other change here. I'm going to check this box to allow creation of records in the enrollment table. And we'll see, that's this direction. We'll see how this works in practice. Okay. So by the way, it's kind of cool that in FileMaker you can change relationships on the fly. And even if you've got portals, they won't disappear. They will be broken. So if I went here and tried to look at this, I won't see records that match because I need to change this to be from enrollment. So on both of these sides, I'm going to change it to enrollment. I think I did something there. And then also on both sides, I want to be able to see kind of the both of the join tables, which is not going to be super clear at the moment. We're going to get to that in a second. So this is my class. And in the enrollment table, really I just have two fields. This is going to be the class and the student. And I'm going to put them both here as well in this window. So I have in the enrollment table, I'm going to have my two fields from the enrollment table, class and student. I will put those markers here. Okay. Now, if I were to make records in here and I wanted to enroll in Music 101, I wanted to enroll student Lucy and Ranger, that would be adding a record for student 1 and for student 2. And then if I go over to the student side, and if I'm looking at Lucy, I can see that Lucy is enrolled and also Ranger is enrolled. Let's make a couple of more students, right? Let's make a student for John and Mary. And we're going to put them in both in 12th grade. We'll ignore the foreign key thing for the moment. We're going to come to that later. And let's say that in our Music 101 class, we also want to enroll John, whose record ID is, John is ID 4, Mary's ID 5. So it skipped one there, but that's okay because the ID numbers don't mean anything. Okay, so now I have one other enrollment. So one of the things we don't yet see here is the name of the student, which of course is what we want. So one of the things that's cool about FileMaker is when you have a join table in the middle and you're starting from either side, not only can you see the ID data, but you can see through that table to the other side. So that means that if I'm sitting here at class and I want to see the name of the student, I can look from enrollment or from class through the enrollment to the student table and see the name of the student. And so that just shows the name. Furthermore, if I'm over here on the student side, I can do the exact same thing. I can see from the student through the enrollment to the class. And then see the name of the class. Okay, so student Lucy. So this is student Lucy here. Well, I think I have some redundant data in here. Yeah, I've got two records for Lucy, which I don't need. So really, student 3 is not Lucy. This is one of the ones I made from earlier. Let's make student 3 Joan. So we've got, let's take a look at our 5 students now. Lucy, Ranger, Joan, John, and Mary. So let's start back at the first one, Lucy. Lucy right now is in class 1, which is Music 101. Let's make this a little wider so we can see more of what's going on there, because we're going to be adding some more information to this in a bit. Okay, let's enroll Lucy in one additional class. So we're going to go to the other class we made called Math 101, and we're going to enroll Lucy in that by putting Lucy's ID, which is 1, and creating a record into the join table. And so because of that checkbox, all I have to do is I just have to add student 1 to Math 101. And now Lucy's enrolled in both classes. Because of the way this relationship works, if I were to change some data, I would actually see, if I change the student's name, that student name would echo all the way through everywhere else in the database. So if I change this one to Lucy Jones, I see that name change everywhere. So that's one of the lovely things about how data is deduplicated. Okay, let's go to the next level here and talk about the teacher, right? So we have the teacher. Let's say that Matt is teaching multiple classes. Let's say that there's a class called Music 101 Baroque Era, and there's another one called Music 201 Classical Era, and Music 301. Let's say Modern Era. It would be Romantic, wouldn't it? You know, Beethoven. Over here in classical, we've got Mozart, and over here in Music 101, Baroque. Did I call that Baroque era? Oh, here we go. This is a duplicate, so let's delete the duplicate record. So we've got Music 101 Baroque, 201 Classical, and 301 Romantic. These are all taught by Matt. And then we can also see we've got some redundancy now, right? Because we've got Matt spelled out 3 times. And so a better way to do this would actually be to have a single record for a teacher, where you could list all the classes for the teacher. Back to the graph, make a new table from our template. I'm going to call this one teacher. Our attributes in teacher are going to be name, let's call it teacher name, and some other attribute for teacher department. Right, we may have obviously a lot more. So now we have our teacher name and department, and that will go just kind of hanging out here somewhere. We'll talk to that in a minute. So if we want to have, rather than storing the name of the teacher, let's bring up one more window here for our teacher table. And if we have teacher number 1, Matt, who's in the music department, teacher number 2, let's give these people names too. I'm just going to say I'm a music teacher. And then let's see, Mr. Ebby is going to be Mr. Joseph Ebby. Okay, and he's in history? No, math. I get that confused because Mr. Ebby was actually my high school history teacher, and I don't remember his first name. Okay, so now if we want to link this up, and what I really want to see is I want to be able to see when I'm looking at my teacher, I want to see the classes for the teacher, the classes that they're teaching. And I don't have any relationships here yet, but that's what I want to see here. So in order to do that, I have to have teacher connected to class somehow. So maybe I'll just stick this out here, and then we have that whole one-to-many thing, right? So if we think about it from the one-to-many, one teacher has many classes, so that's going to be primary key for the teacher, foreign key for the class. Let's see if that works. We'll also allow creation of records so that teacher can have multiple classes that they teach. For now, though, we're just going to link them that way. Okay, so now that means if a given class, this is my class window, Music 101, Baroque Era, is being taught by teacher 1, Matt Navarre, that means that then I should be able to see the name of the teacher here. So here next to foreign key, I'm going to list teacher, and then I should be able to see the name of the teacher right here. And I do. So if I put like Matt Q Navarre, which is not my middle initial, that gets changed over here. Again, we've got this principle of keeping your data in one place. So I can change it in either place and it goes back. and spell my own name incorrectly. Okay, so this is kind of fleshing out a little bit. But now let's throw some serious wrenches into the situation here. First of all, before I do that, I just want to list one other thing, which is I want to see the ability to list the classes taught by Matt, by each teacher, right? So I'm going to say, oh, for the class, I want to see the name of the class. And I don't need to see the name of the teacher because I already know who that is. So if I'm going to have Matt be the teacher for all of the music classes, oh, this is teacher 2, Matt, and Matt. So now I see 3 classes being taught by Matt, which is great. That's what I wanted. But also kind of what I want to see is I want to see all of the students in all of the classes taught by Matt. The tricky thing is to see them by class, but we already know that if we go to a given class, like Baroque era, we can go to that class. And here's the one, and we can see all the students who are taking the class. But what happens if I try to get a list of all the students here? So here I'm sitting at teacher, and I want to look at all of the students. I'm looking all the way through the graph. So let's take it one step at a time. Let's first make a portal to list enrollment. And in enrollment, again, I only see the IDs. I'm going to put those both there. And then this actually shows me kind of a bunch of keys, which isn't super useful. Let's label this. Enrollment. Put scroll bars on these things. And then let's see what we get. Okay. So we see just the IDs, which is not super useful. So kind of what I want to see is like the ID of the class and then the name, and then the ID of the student and the name. And one other thing that I thought that I would really want to do, which we're going to go ahead and try to do, is I want another portal here that shows me the students. Because this is something you would think would work, but it's going to be a little bit different than what we would guess. Okay, so I would think, let's say that we've got, in our example, because this is going to help a lot having really good data to look at it. Let's say that Matt is teaching these 3 classes. So here's the class, here's Matt teaching 3 classes. Let's say that in those classes, the first class and the second class both have Lucy and Ranger taking it. So that means in Music 101 and 201, we have both Lucy, ID student 1, and Ranger, ID student 2. But in the third class, the Romantic Era class, the only student signed up is going to be Joan, who's student 3. So that would mean, I would think, that if I'm looking at my my teacher, that I would actually see like a lot of, I'd see all this information down here that would be kind of have some redundancy in it. I guess I'm really curious what I would see, right? Like how many records would I see down here? And am I going to see duplication? Let's maybe bring these here, bring this up here so I can see a little bit more clearly. Make each of these 4 lines high, make them a little shorter. So that's kind of enrollment. This one we're just going to call it students, because there's a really important concept that I want to demonstrate by this. So we see that there's no duplication in the student. But over here, we actually do see some duplication. We see ID, let's flush out some more data here. So in the enrollment ID class, we're going to look through the enrollment table to the class and find out what the name of the class is. and we want to look through the enrollment table to the student and find out what the name of the student is. This will make more sense. So Matt in the music department is teaching Music 101. So we've got all the enrollment is listed multiple times. Here's Music 101, the Baroque era. There are 3 students enrolled, which are student IDs 1, 2, and 4. And so Lucy is enrolled in that class. Lucy is also enrolled in class, let's see, oh, that's class 4. Do I have a redundancy here? It looks like I maybe have Lucy enrolled twice in Music 101 Baroque. If I've made that, that was a mistake, and I may have done that. No, I didn't. So maybe I'm seeing something else over here. So you can see that this is starting to get a little bit confusing. But the principle that I wanted to show is this. In any given table, when you're looking at a portal, the table that's anchored to the portal, in this case, that's a table occurrence called student. And the student table is anchored to, the student table occurrence is anchored to the table called student. You're only going to be able to see the number of records that's in that table, right? So this shows 4 records because there only are 4 records in the student table. Or well, actually, there's only 4 records in all the classes. So we can make another couple of students here. Let's see, Jerry and Ethan and Dave. So I've got other students that exist, but I don't see them here because they're not currently enrolled in any class taught by this teacher. But over here, we see lots of records because we can see up to as many records that exist in the enrollment table. Our data model still needs some more work though. So because this gets really large, so let's take a look, let's take a step back and talk about some of the other things that might need to be linked. For example, we're not really even talking about the class term. So a given class, Music 101, is taught, let's say, every semester. So it's really taught twice a year forever, and it may or may not be taught by the same teacher. So we have to have a concept for that. And so class is kind of a difficult name because does it mean the class being taught this particular term, or does it mean the class taught like overall? And naming is a tricky thing in that particular situation. So that's one of the things that you have to think about a lot when you're doing data modeling. So let's just call that one like syllabus maybe. Oh wait, I gotta make a new table here. So for my template, I'll call it syllabus for class. And then that's going to be I'll call it the class number. That will be like Music 101, etc. And then this is going to be the class name. And this might be, really, we know now, not the teacher, but let's say maybe level, something like that. Let's put some other concepts on here, right? Let's say that we need to track attendance, like does a student show up for class on a given day? So quite a concept there, right? So now we need to know a couple of things. Like when we're tracking attendance, we need to know which class we're talking about. So that's going to be is going to be the ID of the class. And we need to know which student we're talking about. And then the attendance data might be something like did attend or didn't. Did attend. And then maybe the second attribute could be like a note, like why they were late, why they missed. let's see, let's add a little bit more to this mix and then we'll play with some things on the graph. Let's look up, right? So this is looking down from student down to attendance to more detail. Up the chain would be like the department. So if we have a department, department name, we also might have the school itself, right? School name. We also may have the school district. All right, so we've got a lot of concepts here. So all these things are kind of just hanging out. So we talked about some being up and some being down. So we're going to end this exercise after just a couple more things here. So basically, we talked first about the syllabus. So where does this go? This goes kind of at the class level. And so this is the class here is basically an instance of a class for a typical term being taught by a teacher. So really in our class table, we're going to also add term. And the syllabus for the class is going to be how these two connect. So a given syllabus is going to have multiple classes. So the problem here is if we connect the syllabus to the foreign key, now we've kind of got two foreign keys. So we've got here the foreign keys being the teacher and here the foreign keys being the syllabus, and that doesn't really work. So foreign key is kind of a generic name. As we build the database out, I think maybe would name our foreign key something more explicit. So let's actually name it. In the current class table, we have a one called ID of the teacher. So in our class table, this one is going to be called ID teacher. And then we need another one, which is going to be the ID of the syllabus. And so these are two foreign keys we have that will allow us then, this is the teacher, and then this is the syllabus. So that's kind of how this would look, right? And this is kind of weird because we've got these multiple levels. Normally, by the way, we would never make what this is called a spider graph. I would build this different, but for the purposes of this explanation, I think it's just kind of simpler to see it in this way. Okay, department. So a given teacher really could be in a different department. So in our teacher table, we've got foreign key. So in teacher, let's call this foreign key ID department. And then we have a similar thing where we have the department connecting, right? So the department would be the department ID. Oh, I may have labeled that incorrectly. Let's go back to teacher. ID department. So a given teacher is in a given department ID. So we're going to reorganize this from top to bottom in a minute. Okay, a school has many different departments. So a teacher may belong to a school, but really a teacher belongs to a department, and a department belongs to a school, and a school belongs to a district. So that means a department belongs to a school. That means a department table has an ID for school. So the foreign key is ID of the school. So department belongs to a school. One of the ways I do this, by the way, is I grab anything to anything. And then I hit Command O, Control O, which opens up the relationship. This is a much easier way to manage it. So department belongs to a school. That's the ID of the school is the link there. Similarly, a school belongs to a district, which means in my school table, I have the ID of the district. And then I link those up as well. So anything to anything, open. and the ID of the district to the ID of the district. And then attendance we haven't yet linked, and this is the one that tracks, really kind of hangs off of either student or class. I have to really figure out where that's going to go. And actually it kind of maybe goes from enrollment, but it really can go into a few different places. So maybe for simplicity for now, we want to think about the attendance as something that we want to view for a given student. And so I'll just link attendance from the ID of the student. Oh, and I see what I did wrong here. I named the field in the wrong table. So here's ID student to ID. So yeah, I was in the student table. A student doesn't belong to a department. So there is no ID department in the student table. Okay, so this is really kind of a mishmash. Let's rearrange this graph, I would say from the top down. So by that I mean the largest attribute, if you will, would be the district. So state would be above that. So from one to many, one district has many schools, right? One district has many schools allow creation. One school has many departments. One department has many teachers. One teacher has many classes. This is getting interesting. One class has many enrollments. And then the enrollment is really a join between the student. A class also has syllabus. So this is kind of interesting because really class is actually a join between teacher and syllabus, right? So a teacher teaches Music 101, and then on a given term, Music 101 can be offered. This is actually even more complex than that. We're not going to fix that right now. But you can begin to see the complexity. Okay, so enrollment has a student, and for a given student, there's attendance, and so a given student can have attendance. So we're going to step back and take a look at this all the way from the top and see how this plays out. So we started really simple, right? And now we've got quite a chain, and there's much more to go, right? You could have assignments, tests, test scores. You can get very down to the nitty-gritty of things in a data model. Okay, so let's start at the top. District. District 1 needs to have school. So District 1 is ABC in Oregon. And the school is going to be, MD High, and maybe like, I don't know, Portland Middle. So these would be schools within the district. And then if we go into the school table, I will have just created 2 school records, because through the relationship, that's how that works. So now we're going to go down from school down to its next level, which is going to be department. So a school has multiple departments. Such as music and math. Now we're going to go down to department. Now we see those 2 records we just created here. Departments have classes. I believe that's how it works. Yeah, departments have teachers. Okay, so which teachers exist for a department? So we could, if we go here, we're going to actually start creating teachers. But since we already have teachers, we're just going to put the ID of the department. So in our music department, we have Matt. And in our math department, we have Mr. Ebby. And if we have a third teacher, let's say Jane, that's also a music department, which is department 1. So now we can see, we can easily list who all the teachers are in a given department. Okay, down the chain. So we've already looked at teacher. And so teacher, we already know that we have enrollment. So we've already built out at the beginning, teacher to class to enrollment. And then down the chain now we have student and then attendance. So let's build this one out. And then we'll introduce one small concept and then we'll be done. Okay, so from our student, which is really how we started, I want to add one other portal here for the attendance. And this is going to be the ID of the class, and then they did attend or didn't, and then a note. Okay, I think I moved that field a little too high. So then the tricky thing here is how to show this, right? So if we look up at class, if a given student, Lucy, who is enrolled in a particular class, let's put some labels on these things. Class ID, attended. Attended. I cannot tolerate too many typos. So in class 1, attended. You know, we need something more too. We really need date in the attended because there's many different dates of the class. So really in our attendance table, it needs a date. So today. So Lucy attended class 1, Baroque era, also on 6-1, but then in class 1 on 6-2. Okay, so I can see that I can track that pretty easily. But you know, I really want to see, and this is our last concept, I want to see this from the perspective of the class. So Lucy is also enrolled in class 2, and on class 2 on 625, she did not attend. Right, so this is going to get a lot of records in it, you can see. So I want to be able to see for the class 1, Music 101 Baroque era, I want to see the attendance of all the students in the class. But if I look at the graph, that won't work from here because this is so far down the line and there's no valid relationship between attendance to the class. I can't look at it all this way. So we have another concept, which is you can have multiple copies of a given table. They're called table occurrences. And this one needs to be directly related to the class. So this is going to be the ID of the class to the class. And I'll call this one class attendance. And I'll call this one student attendance. Naming conventions will come up later. And then in another video, so I'll add here the class attendance so that I can see, we're going to see one other wrinkle here. I want to see if they did attend and the date. I'm going to go ahead and break it. I'll show something else that's going to be, that will work the way you think it should. I'm just going to add the student. So I'll just choose student and choose the student name. And so this says for the class 101, that it was attended by Lucy, yes, yes, and no. But if I look at my data, let's see, 6.2. I'm trying to think of how this is going to break. I'm show a really good way that it will be broken. This shows me part of what I think I want to get. So for this particular class, let's do a little bit of research. Music 101 has multiple attendance records. Lucy attended it attended class 1 3 times, except on this one, she did not attend. So let's actually say that this was actually class 2 that she didn't attend. That record immediately disappears from here. But if I go to another student, Ranger, and I'll say Ranger also attended class 1, and did attend, and on 625. So here's where we see the problem, right? So Lucy attended on 625, Ranger attended on 625, but this is both showing Lucy. And you would think that would work because this is from student after all, right? Student name. But it doesn't because of the path to the relationship. When I'm sitting here at class and I want to see class attendance, I cannot look through the enrollment in the student. I have to only look through the class attendance table to the student. And so in addition, so this one is duplicated, and this one's also going to have to be duplicated. So class attendance knows the student ID. And then I'm going to rename this one, just for clarity, class attendance. Attend and student. So I've got regular student and class attendance student, and they're 3 different paths. One of them is through the enrollment table, and one of them is through the actual attendance table. So if I merely change the path to this table to say class attendance student and don't change anything else, that will fix this. And the reason that that's the case is because of that path. All right, that's a lot. Thank you very much for sticking with it, and I hope that you found this useful.